They came with smiles, with flags, flyers, and foreign accents. They promised hope, healing, and help. But somewhere between the food parcels and the flashlights, between the medical tents and the motivational speeches, something went terribly wrong. In a quiet village near the Sahel, a boy disappears. Then another. Parents search, whispers grow, fear spreads. Aid trucks continue to arrive, but now they unload more than rice and bandages. Shadows trail behind the banners of international NGOs, shadows that speak foreign languages and carry satellite phones, not stethoscopes. The police are told to stay away. The village chief stops asking questions. And in the nearby hills, the sound of gunfire echoes, not from terrorists, but from camps guarded by those who once handed out notebooks to schoolchildren. What started as humanitarian relief is now something else, something colder, more calculated. A network of well-funded organizations, armed with the perfect cover, compassion. But in the capital, someone is watching. Ibrahim Traoré, the young captain who rose through fire to lead Burkina Faso, knows the game. He's seen how foreign aid can be weaponized, not just with dollars, but with ideology and influence. And now, his country is the battlefield. The whispers reach his ears. A missing military report. A drone feed intercepted. A coded message hidden in an NGO email. Traoré doesn't flinch. He gathers his council. He activates his network. And with the quiet fury of a man who's seen enough, he prepares to strike, not with violence, but with truth. This is the untold story behind the aid trucks. The hidden war beneath the banner of relief. And the man who stood between a nation and its silent invaders. This is the story of Ibrahim Traoré, and how he exposed the ghosts behind the gifts. At first, they were welcomed like saviors. Convoys of clean white trucks bearing logos of well-known NGOs rumbled through the dusty roads of Burkina Faso, met with waves and applause. Their arrival was timed perfectly. The country, battered by conflict and economic strain, desperately needed help. In towns once cut off by fear, mobile clinics appeared overnight. Western volunteers, young, confident, full of ideals, handed out first aid kits and solar lanterns. They spoke of hope, human rights, and rebuilding from the ground up. "These are friends," people whispered. "They've come to save us." And for a while, that seemed true. Children received new textbooks. A solar-powered water well opened in a dry village. A rural clinic began offering prenatal care for the first time. Photographers captured smiling faces under NGO banners. International news outlets praised Burkina Faso's model for Western partnership. Behind the lens, however, a different narrative began to unfold. Some of the NGOs operated with a strange intensity. They insisted on working in isolated zones, avoiding coordination with local authorities. When customs officials questioned their shipments, they invoked diplomatic pressure to bypass inspections. Their headquarters were guarded, not by local security, but by private contractors, some of whom were former soldiers with no background in humanitarian work. More curious still were the youth training programs. Branded as empowerment initiatives, they offered workshops in leadership and survival skills, but behind closed doors, drills and tactical exercises took place. Satellite images later showed fenced compounds with obstacle courses, bunkers, and live-fire ranges. The programs recruited young men from vulnerable communities, especially those with few options outside poverty or displacement. These weren't charity efforts. They were boot camps. Some local leaders raised questions. They were silenced, sidelined, or suddenly relocated. One mayor who refused an NGO's request to build a logistics station on the town's outskirts was found dead days later in a staged car accident. No investigation followed. Still, the foreign aid narrative prevailed. The West saw progress. The world applauded the stability aid brought to Burkina Faso. But Ibrahim Traoré saw something else. He saw the patterns. The anomalies. The foreign hands that claimed to help, but moved like strategists on a chessboard. And he began to investigate. The illusion couldn't hold forever. It started with a single report from a junior officer stationed near the Mali border. He noted an unusual shipment arriving at night, escorted not by military or customs officials, but by unmarked jeeps. The containers were stamped medical aid. But through thermal drones, they emitted shapes inconsistent with medicine, long, metallic, uniform. The officer flagged it. 3 days later, the report was scrubbed from the system. But not before it reached the desk of someone inside the Presidential Guard, someone loyal to Ibrahim Traoré. Across the country, whispers turned into patterns. A nurse volunteering with a well-known European NGO resigned abruptly, telling friends she was uncomfortable with the military presence around their operations. A local journalist uncovered discrepancies in NGO financial reports, with entire line items marked as special logistics. Aid warehouses were being built in remote locations, fenced with barbed wire and protected by ex-military contractors. And in the northern regions, where insurgency was most active, rumors began to surface about foreigners training the boys. At first, it was dismissed as fear-mongering. But then came the footage. A local informant risked his life to deliver a shaky phone recording to the capital. In it, a group of young men, no older than 19, practiced formation drills under the instruction of a pale, bearded man speaking French with a Belgian accent. The terrain was arid. The flags behind them bore no national symbol, only the branding of a youth resilience program funded by foreign aid. The footage was damning. But it was only the beginning. More leaks followed. Internal emails showed encrypted exchanges between NGO field managers and foreign intelligence contractors. The emails referenced strategic positioning, security coordination assets, and PAGs, a term later decrypted to mean proxy armed groups. Satellite images confirmed that several community resilience centers had doubled in size within months, with infrastructure resembling barracks more than aid facilities. Then came the breaking point, a cache of weapons discovered in a supposedly medical-only convoy, buried beneath stretchers and intravenous bags. The arms were not just surplus. They were new, untraceable, and suspiciously well-suited for guerrilla warfare. Still, no international media reported it. No foreign government commented. The humanitarian shield was thick. But within Burkina Faso, the mood shifted. What once inspired gratitude now bred suspicion. Ibrahim Traoré, tracking every anomaly with military precision, began assembling a team, not of soldiers, but of truth-seekers, intelligence analysts, former journalists, regional informants. The NGOs had a plan. But now, so did he. By the time the intelligence reached his hands, Captain Ibrahim Traoré had seen enough. He wasn't a politician by birth, he was a soldier molded by the heat of the Sahel, shaped by betrayal, war, and the haunting silence of villages left to burn. When he assumed power in 2022, it wasn't through ceremony, but through necessity. The old regime had crumbled under pressure, both foreign and domestic. And Traoré, with calm eyes and a steady voice, stepped into the void. To many, he was just a transitional figure. Young. Unpredictable. Too idealistic. They underestimated him. Traoré understood the battlefield, not just one of bullets, but of influence. He had read history. He'd seen how empires disguised control beneath aid, how security advisors shaped puppet regimes from within. He recognized the smell of imperialism, even when it came in sleek land cruisers and spoke the language of relief. When the first reports of covert NGO activity surfaced, he didn't react publicly. He didn't summon the press. He did what soldiers do: observe, document, calculate. From a hidden war room inside the presidential compound, he assembled a tight-knit intelligence cell. No paper trails. No leaks. Just quiet professionals, cybersecurity experts, military strategists, and loyalists from the provinces who owed no allegiance to foreign sponsors. Traoré pored over intercepted emails late into the night. He reviewed satellite footage frame by frame. He personally interviewed defectors from militia groups who admitted they were trained by foreign coaches under NGO flags. Each piece of data confirmed what his instinct had told him from the beginning: Burkina Faso was under siege, not by open invasion, but by infiltration. His journal, later leaked by a trusted aide, revealed chilling notes. NGO 47, logistics depot matches militia supply routes. Outreach program, recruits disappear. Reappear in northern camps. Armed. Media silence equals complicity. Our sovereignty is being auctioned. Despite mounting pressure from international embassies to cooperate with aid partners, Traoré remained still. He watched. He waited. Until one morning, he issued a single command: go public. He wasn't just preparing to expose a network, he was preparing to redefine what Burkina Faso stood for. Not a proxy, not a client state, but a nation that would no longer trade sovereignty for staged sympathy. The world still saw him as a soldier. They were about to see him as a sentinel. It happened on a Tuesday morning. No leaks, no press teasers. Just a simple government message posted online: national address, 10 a.m. Urgent. In the capital, Ouagadougou, people paused their routines. In remote towns, radios crackled to life. Across West Africa, curious eyes turned toward a broadcast few expected, and even fewer were prepared for. Ibrahim Traoré stepped in front of the nation, not flanked by generals, but by evidence. On the screen behind him, the first image appeared: a map of Burkina Faso, overlaid with logos of well-known international NGOs. Then came satellite photos, once classified, showing fortified compounds labeled as aid centers, but clearly structured like military outposts. The next slide showed intercepted communications, emails between NGO directors and operatives from foreign military contractors, marked with phrases like "PAG personnel training completed" and "Zone 3 supplies delivered." Traoré spoke not with rage, but with chilling precision. They came offering food, and brought bullets. They preached peace, while training our youth for war. They promised development, but delivered destabilization, and they did not act alone. Then came the kicker: live testimony from a young man, face hidden, voice altered. He had joined a resilience program run by a foreign NGO. Within weeks, he said, they were training with rifles, not books. They told us we were protectors, he said. But they sent us to fight our own people. The room fell silent. What followed was an immediate series of executive orders: the suspension of over a dozen NGOs, the seizure of their assets pending investigation, and the announcement of a new independent commission to audit all foreign-funded operations in the country. The international community reacted with shock and denial. Foreign embassies issued statements calling the accusations unfounded and damaging to humanitarian efforts. But in Burkina Faso, the people had already made up their minds. Within hours, citizens flooded the streets. Not in protest, in solidarity. Young men marched with placards, "We are not your pawns." Women sang revolutionary songs from the Sankara era, graffiti appeared overnight, NGOs equals neocolonialism. On social media, hashtags exploded, hashtag Traoré Truth, hashtag Our Land Our Rules, hashtag Ghosts of Aid. International journalists scrambled to frame the narrative. But for once, the people were ahead of the press. Ibrahim Traoré didn't just expose a covert network. He shattered the illusion that foreign aid was untouchable. He revealed how charity could be weaponized, and how sovereignty, when defended with clarity and courage, could reclaim its voice. And in that moment, a leader once seen as transitional became something else entirely. He became a firewall. In the days following the revelation, Burkina Faso stood at a crossroads. But under Ibrahim Traoré's leadership, there was no hesitation. The first decree banned all NGOs implicated in covert operations. Their assets were frozen, their staff expelled, and their compounds reclaimed by the state. But Traoré knew this was only a first step. If Burkina Faso wanted to break free from dependency, it had to build something new, something sovereign. He called it souveraineté réelle, real sovereignty. The doctrine was simple: no foreign intervention without full transparency, no aid without accountability, and no partnerships that undermine national dignity. Under this new policy, Burkina Faso would only accept development assistance from allies who respected its autonomy, and who did not hide weapons behind vaccines. Traoré then launched the By Us, For Us initiative, directing resources into local-led agricultural reform, security training, and education programs powered by Burkinabe talent. A special fund was created to support community leaders previously sidelined by foreign-controlled aid flows. Villagers once recruited by foreign youth programs were now offered roles in civil service and public works. The response was electric. In towns once drowned in foreign flags, murals of Ibrahim Traoré now rose, depicting him not as a general, but as a guardian. Across West Africa, leaders took notice. Pan-African movements cited him as a model for resisting neocolonial manipulation. African youth, long skeptical of politics, found in him something rare, a leader who said no, and meant it. He didn't close Burkina Faso to the world. He simply opened its eyes. And in doing so, Traoré transformed a moment of exposure into a movement of empowerment, one that redefined what help looks like, and who gets to decide its terms. Beneath the white banners and warm smiles, there was a war no one talked about, a war not of bombs, but of influence. And in the heart of West Africa, a young captain-turned-leader refused to let it go unnoticed. Ibrahim Traoré didn't just expose foreign manipulation, he rewrote the script. In a world where aid often comes with invisible chains, he dared to ask, who really benefits? And when the answers came, he didn't blink, he acted. His courage reminded a nation, and a continent, that sovereignty is more than borders. It's about decisions made without coercion. About partnerships built on truth, not secrecy. About dignity that doesn't come in a shipping container stamped relief. What happened in Burkina Faso is not an isolated story. It's a warning. A signal to all nations that true support empowers, it doesn't infiltrate. That behind some helping hands are hidden agendas. And that real freedom sometimes begins by saying one word, clearly and unapologetically, no. Now, the world is watching. Will other countries follow? Will more leaders rise with the clarity to protect, not just govern? That answer is still unfolding, but one thing is certain. The ghosts behind the gifts have been seen. And there's no unseeing them. If this story opened your eyes, share it. If it made you question what you've been told, talk about it, and if you want to see more stories that reveal the unseen, subscribe, stay curious, and stay alert. Because next time, we're asking the harder question. France's exit, Russia's entry, who's really shaping West Africa's future? In the aftermath of Traoré's national address, it wasn't just Burkina Faso that stirred, it was the entire African continent. In the markets of Bamako, Mali, vendors paused their sales to replay the speech on dusty radios. In Accra, Ghana, university students debated the implications in lecture halls and Twitter threads. In Kinshasa, taxi drivers talked about it over the hum of morning traffic. The ripple effect was real, and deeply emotional. For many Africans, the feeling was vindication. "We've said it for years," said Awa Diop, a teacher from Senegal. That some of these NGOs weren't helping, they were watching. Or worse, dividing us. Finally, someone said it with power. Across social media, thousands shared personal stories, of promised aid that never arrived, of foreign advisors who seemed more interested in maps than medicine, of schools built but never staffed. For the first time in decades, it felt like someone inside the system, a leader, not an activist, had confirmed what many had long suspected, that Africa's poverty wasn't always natural, and that sometimes, help had strings attached. But alongside that vindication was a wave of caution. "I'm proud of Traoré," said Lamine, a mechanic in Abidjan. "But now he's made enemies. Big ones. The same powers that removed other African leaders, they'll come for him too. We have to protect him, and protect the truth." Indeed, history was not on Africa's side. From Patrice Lumumba to Thomas Sankara, too many leaders who challenged the global order met untimely deaths. Traoré's boldness revived that legacy, and the fear that it might repeat. Yet despite the danger, something new had taken root, hope with clarity. Young Africans, long disillusioned by politics, began speaking differently. On TikTok and Telegram, influencers began calling for sovereignty audits in their own countries. The term neocolonialism, once academic, was now viral. Protesters in Niger held signs that read, "We don't need saviors. We need respect." Even those in the diaspora felt the tremors. "I'm watching from Paris," said Kofi, a second-generation Ivorian. "And for the first time, I feel like going home might mean building something real, not just escaping." And in Burkina Faso, the feeling was deeper still. In rural villages, people began reclaiming space, repainting old NGO signs, converting foreign-built depots into community halls. Parents began asking more questions. Local leaders, once overshadowed by well-funded outsiders, were being invited to speak again. A quiet revolution was underway, not of violence, but of ownership. Of course, not all foreign NGOs were corrupt. Many had done sincere, life-saving work. But Traoré's actions had forced a continent-wide reckoning. Aid must now come with consent, not assumption. With partnership, not paternalism. In the words of an elder from Ouahigouya, "Before, they gave us food but told us how to eat. Now, we want to farm, and choose our own recipes." The ghosts behind the gifts had been seen. And in their place, something stronger began to rise, not hatred of the outside, but a deeper love of the inside. A pride not in isolation, but in identity. A hunger not for handouts, but for honest hands. A future no longer borrowed, but built.